Hey folks, in this video we're going to take a closer look at APIwiz version 3.0. The team has been working on some really exciting updates across this new version. So let's dive right in. Starting with the API Insights dashboard. When you run the API discovery modules of APIwiz, we capture all traffic, whether it's traffic from your API gateways or standalone microservices across any of your environments, whether it's a SOAP API or REST or GraphQL. But once we capture the traffic, we build a rich API Insights dashboard for your teams to digest. So you can get a clear idea of how many endpoints are there within your API ecosystem, along with what's the proportion of APIs that are secure versus unsecure, also a full breakdown of your environments, domains used to access your APIs, a breakup of your zombie and shadow traffic, as well as any sensitive data used across your APIs. You also get a snapshot of the security threats found within your APIs, along with not just details of the consumer, but also the geolocation from where those consumers are accessing your APIs. So pretty much is a central starting point for all teams when they want to inspect their APIs. So you have details of domain, source, URI, status, compliance and security metrics, as well as details on agents and regions as well. With APIwiz, we encourage an API define and design first approach to building out your API program. The API program dashboard captures metrics across your entire API program and gives you a governance score on the scale of 1 to 5 on 5 key factors such as design, build, security, reliability, and compliance. We also give a snapshot of your metrics across your code coverage, monitoring, your security and test compliance, your API linting coverage, also a breakup of your security reports, as well as any active API inventories, such as how many APIs are currently in your pipeline versus how many are already published. We also give a snapshot of how many APIs have been successfully deployed across your different portfolios. Every enterprise comprises a set of business units or portfolios. So you start by defining these portfolios within your organization and start defining services even before you start designing your APIs. Once you define your services, the next step would be to identify those key API workflows that power your business use cases. So this could be something as simple as a sanctioned loan, and this is a banking use case. So you could start defining a conceptual workflow called sanctioned loan and define the entire chain of API calls that happens in succession. Now these could be sequential or parallel depending on your business use case. Once you've defined your API workflows and created your portfolios on the dashboard, the next step would be to actually build and design your APIs. So we have a central schema registry or the data dictionary, which houses all your common models. So you define all of these models in a single place, and you can either create them from scratch on APIwiz or import them from your databases or even upload schemas straight up onto the workspace. And once you define these common data models, all your APIs can be designed by referencing those data models using our low-code editor. This allows not just technical but also non-technical personas to quickly iterate through API design, and a lot of the non-functional aspects such as generating a change log whenever changes have been pushed to this API, they are completely automated. You can also manage the reviews that get accessed and addressed on your API, as well as manage different versions and revision management straight out of the box with our low-code editor. So your teams have all the non-functional aspects fully automated for them. Once you design your APIs, you may be interested in quickly creating a sandbox environment in which to host these APIs. So we have a dedicated API sandbox which lets you fully customize how you want to mock up your APIs. And these could be not just individual APIs, but also APIs as part of larger sequence of workflows. So you can actually design a completely complex workflow as part of an API sandbox and expose this to your consumers or your stakeholders to test it out and plug it into their functions before the backend is even fully completed. Once you build out your microservices and deploy them to your environments, you could also follow a similar practice and also create a workflow to create test scenarios for each use case. So you can start testing out your APIs not just as unit tests, but also as part of larger workflows to see if your APIs, whether they are microservices, or you can also create test cases once your proxies are deployed to your API gateway. So you could start by quickly creating test scenarios, and these could be integrations to your existing APIs or database connections, or even your API gateway proxies. inspect your test insights using our rich dashboards to see whether your APIs are actually performing the way they should, and they check out. APIwiz has a rich array of connectors across source control, DevOps, API gateway integrations, which has nearly a connector to nearly every major API gateway out there today, as well as use cases for identity management and certain other use cases, as well as SMTP and database integrations as well. APIwiz has connectors to nearly every major API gateway out there, which means that you could use APIwiz as the centralized control plane for all your data planes. I have a sample of Kong here where I have a couple of proxies deployed, so I can manage my full lifecycle of my services on Kong right from APIwiz, and everything is controlled through the OpenAPI spec. So I just upload the spec and edit my configs if needed, and add any plugins, and go ahead and just deploy the service, and gets deployed onto my data plane. What I could also do is manage any other configs and entities across my data planes right from APIwiz. So all my certificates, SNIs, targets, products, plugins, or any native config that's supported by your API gateway is something that you can configure on APIwiz. Once you've deployed your proxies onto your data plane, the next step would be to actually start capturing traffic from your deployed proxies. So we have a dedicated API compliance dashboard, which gives a full breakup of all your transactions. We also give a breakup of how many transactions are actually compliant to your OpenAPI spec versus how many are deviating from your OpenAPI spec due to some data compliance issues. What's of more interest is how many APIs are actually zombie versus how many are shadow. You can further take a drill down of every single transaction by transaction ID and see what's happening in that particular transaction. You can see the request and response, and also see the associated compliance report. So here I see that I have a couple of requests that have been hit, but it's not really compliant against my OpenAPI spec. So I do see there's a particular header parameter that's present in my OpenAPI spec, but it's not being captured in the live traffic, which means that my consumers are using my APIs in an unintended fashion. And you can get a similar breakup on the zombie and shadow APIs as well. What we also do as part of observability and traffic capture in APIwiz is it's not just about the individual transactions, but also how they are as part of an overall trace. So over here we have a dedicated API visualizer, or the tracing dashboard, so you can select any of the API traces that you want to inspect further, and we give a full trace of that particular transaction. So here you can see a request was generated from the client application. It hit my API gateway, which is Kong in this case as an example, and from Kong it was proxied to a backend microservice, and then it goes in a sequence to another series of microservices. So at any point of time I can actually click on any of these traffic nodes to inspect what is the actual request and response that was exchanged at this point in time, as well as get the associated compliance report on why this API was non-compliant at this point in my transaction. What's also provided as part of the trace is this neat performance metrics dashboard, which means that you can actually inspect the overall time taken by each leg of your transaction. What we also provide as part of the trace is a way to track business logic abuse or any deviations from your expected workflows. So over here I see that as long as it's purple, it's going okay, but as soon as it changes to red, it means that, hey, there's a deviation over here. So if I want to take a closer inspection, I can see that immediately after check consumer credit, it's supposed to validate the collateral, but in my actual flow, it skipped this step and went directly to check product code, which is the next step inside my expected workflow. So you can quickly inspect what is the data associated at this particular point in the transaction and find out whether it's a data issue or a system issue, or there's something else at play over here. What we also have as part of APIwiz is a dedicated API monitoring suite, which allows you to actually create monitors on your API workflows. So you can assess the health and overall availability of your API workflows, not just individual APIs, but workflows in general. Drill down into insights of your actual API workflows and see how they're performing over time. Select individual dates and get a full view of the live uptime and latency of your API workflows. When we capture traffic from APIs, it's also about logging those transactions. So we have a dedicated API logging that's available on APIwiz, and you can inject any type of log configured. You can also create powerful filters using our fields that are automatically indexed whenever we ingest new types of logs. You can use a getting started guide to quickly start ingesting traffic into your API logging dashboard, and also set up alerts as per your convenience, and also create multiple indexes in case you want to host different types of API logs. One of the add-ons available on APIwiz is our integrated API security, which forms a powerful aspect and a way to safeguard your APIs. Your security teams get instant access to over 250 plus inbuilt rule sets across popular security rules and categories such as OWASP Top 10 or local file validations or path traversal attacks and so on and so forth. And they get full access to over 2,000 inbuilt data types that get automatically scanned on every single API that gets transacted upon. So you could configure fields like PII or PCI or any unique sensitive data that gets exchanged across your API in case you don't find it within our existing catalog of data fields. Every single API is logged as part of the security audit log, so you can get a full detail on how this API was transacted upon, what's the consumer that hit this transaction, what are the security threats that were mapped against this, what's the location from where this API was hit, the source IP, the domain, and you can also inspect each and every transaction to get more details on why the security rule was breached. So you could have a dozen rules and conditions that you can fully customize and configure as per your security posture. As soon as they deviate, you get a notification either through email or Slack or through Teams or one of the notification mediums that you configure on APIwiz. What we also have on APIwiz is an alerts management dashboard, which means that you can manage your entire alerts directly from APIwiz, track your number of incidents. You could also start tracking the number of false positives that are raised by your SRE teams or security teams. Empower your security teams with rich insights into the traffic assessed over various periods of time. You can inspect not just the traffic growth, but the overall threat patterns, the zombie and shadow traffic, and also the sensitive data usage, as well as the split between external and internal traffic, and also the geolocations from where these traffics are originating from. You can use our powerful filters and queries in order to quickly get insights into specific transactions of your choice. Our API marketplace or developer portal, and this is a completely headless developer portal, so you can fully customize it. There are a lot of moving parts here, figures, illustrations, graphics. You can see testimonials, marquees, and events. So pretty much everything that you see on this page can be controlled through our management config. So you can define different sections of your developer portal or marketplace. And as you can see here, I have a few custom sections that I've built out, and all the pictures, illustrations, graphics are things that I've defined as a custom. So you can play around with the look and feel of your API marketplace and customize it as you wish. What APIwiz provides as part of documentation is not just your individual API reference. You have an integrated suite not just to see your request response, do a virtual tryout against your APIs, but we also augment your documentation experience using our API guides, which means that you can provide your consumers rich guides and stepwise instructions on how to get onboarded, how to subscribe to your APIs, how to generate a token, so create an app, and start consuming your APIs. And you can embed videos, illustrations, graphics, tables, annotations, notification boxes. What we also have as part of the APIwiz portal is a dedicated product and package management page. So your consumers can look at a package they like and subscribe to it. They can also see the number of APIs that are present in it, any reviews mapped against this API package, and also add it to the subscription. So your developers can come in, manage their apps. They can go in and see the client ID and secrets generated as part of their apps, which are subscribed to products, and they can start consuming those APIs. And what your teams can also do, and your consumers, they can also go in, they can see their packages that they've subscribed to and see what's their overall usage of those packages over a specific period of time. So they can see their overall activity and consumer analytics and trends as well associated with a particular package.